Okay, it's thinking about it.
Yeah. All right, looks good.
All right, I will
Okay,
then start the recording.
great.
Um,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the North American stop on the OEGlobal Tour. Um, our following the energy of the Latin American sessions earlier today, we'll be exploring some of the perspectives, ideas, and work shaping open education across North America. And earlier in the week, we had sessions in Asia and the Middle East, Europe, Africa, and tomorrow we hope you will join us for the announcement of the Open Education Awards. Liz, go ahead and click that video. So, Open Education Global is a member-based global nonprofit supporting the development and the use of open education around the world. And our strategic plan is based on three factors: field building, knowledge exchange, and value co-creation. And we'll talk more on those activities that support these in just a moment. Um, OE Global has over 200 institutional members across the globe and over 200 open education advocates. Go ahead to the next slide, Liz. And you can probably recognize yourselves in some of these dots on the map. Um, OE Global, for the next slide, OE Global's current program areas include the Community College Consortium for OER, or CCCOER, in North America, OE Latam in Latin America, OE Francophone, which covers French-speaking countries and regions, and the network of open orgs. Our activities include Open Education Week, the OE Global Conference, and the Open Education Awards for Excellence. And just a quick introduction, in case you haven't heard about us before, to CCCOER, or the Community College Consortium for OER. We're a community of practice, a network of people passionate about open education. We learn from each other through collaboration and connection. Our professional network includes development like webinars on best practices, emerging trends, policy, and opportunities for practitioners from the community to highlight their work. And our listserv keeps members connected with events, resources, and research. And we have 88 members across 31 states and provinces in the US and Canada. Our executive council and committees are focused on professional development, research, and EDI, or equity, diversity, and inclusion. And these help guide everything that we do. Communities of practice are about learning how to do things better together, and that's really what's at the heart of CCCOER. And for today, to help us guide through today's program, we're joined by our local tour guide, Robert Lawson. Robert, will you introduce yourselves?
Yes, I just wanted to say hello to everybody. I think this is a very exciting project. Really looking forward to hearing what everybody's doing across North America. And as it says, I'm an educational developer at Northwest College in Edmonton, Alberta. And we're located on Treaty 6 territory and in Métis Region number 4. And I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to live and work on this territory, which is a traditional meeting place for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota, Dene, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, and the Inuit as well. And I think that it's such a vibrant community, this merging of all these different histories, languages, and cultures. And I'm very honored to be the host today, your tour guide. I think, as I said, I'm looking forward to hearing what's happening in your specific area. And just a brief introduction, we're going to have a panel discussion with four incredible panelists from across North America. And then we'll have some snapshot talks, some shorter presentations that will focus on a variety of innovative work that's happening in our open communities across North America. I just wanted to encourage everybody to participate, and you can use the QR codes in this presentation and participate on OEG Connect. There's some really fun activities there related to this showcase today. So welcome everybody. So looking forward to hearing about what you're doing and looking forward to all of your questions. So, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be the tour guide, Heather and Liz.
Thanks so much, Robert. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Yeah, my name is Liz Yada. I work remotely from California, and I'm just really excited to learn more about what's going on in North America. And I am running the slides, so I apologize in advance for any glitches.
Thanks, Liz. And my name is Heather Blicker, and I'm the director of CCCOER, logging in from New Hampshire in the United States. And let's move on to the next slide. So this is one of those activities that Robert was mentioning. I just want to mention it very quickly. You can scan this QR code and post a postcard of a project or activity that you're working on or that inspires you, and post it, upload it to OEG Connect, and that's just one of many activities. Let's go to the next one. Another option is you can put open education on the map. Let us know where you're joining from, and add yourself to the Open Educators World Map. And there's that QR code, and I'll give you a moment in case anybody is scanning. And let's go to the next slide. And another option is adding an open education knowledge landmark. So this is a community source list of current open resources, research, events, and references from all over the world. So we'd like to invite you, if you'd like to, scan the QR code and contribute in that way as well. So if you're an attendee, if you're watching this recording, we encourage you to try out one or all of these activities. You're all welcome. Okay, we're going to get started. A warm welcome to our panelists. Before we get started with details about the panel, I do want to have the panelists introduce themselves. With a quick introduction, your name, your role, and your organization, and then we'll dive into a description. Let's start with Nicole.
Lovely. Nicole Allen. I'm the director of open education for SPARC, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization working on open education and open research. And I am joining today from Providence, Rhode Island, in the United States.
Wonderful. And Shinta.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Shinta Hernandez, and I am the Dean of MC Online and Academic Support at Montgomery College in Montgomery County, Maryland, in the United States. And I also served as the past CCCOER Executive Council President. Happy to be here.
Welcome, Shinta. And I just want to note that Shinta is a shortlisted nominee for one of the Open Education Awards. And we'll put that link in the chat. And Letitia, will you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. My name is Leticia Canuero, and I am a recent graduate Masters of Education student from Thomson Rivers University, and which is in British Columbia in Canada.
Thank you, Letitia. And I'm so excited you're here, not only because you're a student and a research assistant from Thompson Rivers, but also because you are also shortlisted for one of the Open Education Awards. So we're so happy that you're here. And Andrea.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Andrea Scott. I am the Director of Open Educational Resources from Salt Lake Community College in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm also the current president for the CCCOER Executive Council Committee. So I'm so glad to be here with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. Let's go to the next slide. Today, our panel discussion is 35 minutes long, so it's a little shorter than usual, and it will be on the opportunities, challenges, and future directions in open education across North America. And these are the three main questions that we are hoping that you'll consider. Robert and I will guide the discussion, but please feel free to jump in and build on each other's ideas. We want this to be conversational and informal. And we'll see where the conversation takes us. So let's start with, does anybody want to talk about an opportunity or a challenge that you see in your region or your community?
I don't mind getting started, if that's all right.
Great.
Okay. I love this question because it gives me a quick opportunity to share with you Montgomery College and Montgomery County. We were recently recognized as one of the most, or the most diverse community college in the continental United States. And part of that is driven by the fact that we're in Montgomery County, also very diverse. And so where this leads us in terms of open education opportunities is that given that we've got students from about 165 countries, here is a natural opportunity, for lack of a better word, to showcase and to embrace open education and open pedagogy. And so with that comes with a challenge of scalability and sustainability, because we are also a very large institution, Montgomery College, but we have a lot of support from our county, our community, and so that helps us to leverage and elevate the work of open pedagogy. So I think for us, just very briefly, it's really to just launch the work and make sure that everybody is aware of it, everybody knows the impact and the benefits of it, and sustaining the work so that everyone at Montgomery College can benefit from it.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, with respect to Montgomery College, that I really enjoyed a webinar by, I think it's Heather Bruce Satram, who she did a webinar on her History in the Making blog, which featured interviews with new Americans. And it was really inspirational to me, and Norquest is also a very diverse institution. And I actually was inspired to create something similar. This includes interviews with students, faculty, and staff about their settlement journey to Canada. And it's going to be offered as an open educational resource. So thanks to Heather for inspiring that. You're doing great work there.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Robert.
Any other opportunities or challenges that anyone is experiencing?
I'd like to mention, first, I'd like to thank Shinta for giving her views. And on my side, in terms of what open education opportunities looks like within my region or community, I would maybe talk on behalf of 2 points. First, of course, within Canada, I see that from a university, which is in Kamloops, it is an opportunity for students that need to give back to their community. I see that as a very important thing because I was granted the opportunity to develop a website that surrounds preservation of Indigenous culture within my own country. And as an international student, it's very important that such universities provide students these opportunities in terms of like networking and knowing how to develop websites that can not only support, inspire educators around their university or around their area within Canada, but also give back to their community. And from my own perspective with my website for Utamaduni Bora, I see it as an opportunity to make education much more accessible online for communities that may not have as much access to what represents them, especially in an online field, and for that to be accessible such that it doesn't need to be paid, it doesn't need to be it also covers more on what they represent as communities from an Indigenous perspective. It's very much important. And in terms of challenges, just to build on what Shinta had mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to develop an open educational resource that represents everybody because there's so many things that need to be taken into consideration. From my community, for example, from Kenya, I'm talking about the Kikuyu tribe, but that is just one tribe out of 47 tribes. So even in Canada, where there are a lot of aside from Indigenous communities, we also have a lot of students that are immigrants and they might want to see themselves. It's sort of a challenge for educators to try and narrow something down because it has a lot of breadth and a lot of depth. It can serve as a challenge, but it can also serve as an opportunity for people to learn on what resource they can make to make it accessible and to make something that represents what is culturally sensitive and authentic.
It's so wonderful to hear about these very specific actions taken through projects from several of you to address these opportunities and these challenges.
I can go ahead and chime in here as well. So to build off of what the previous panelists said, thinking of the opportunity of open education, and this is not new, but as a public good, oftentimes I feel like within our region and our country, we are looking at things from a cost savings perspective. So having this understanding that there's a public good and that there's impacts value that comes from that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the challenges Shinta mentioned with sustainability. And I'm speaking in terms from my institutional perspective. We've done quite a bit of work around sustaining our open education program. And one of those challenges we looked at, we did a program review in 2022, is that we have a lot of faculty that are very passionate about this work. They're passionate about the public scholarship piece of it. However, when it came down to looking at our program review, we didn't have the structure in place to acknowledge our faculty's work in the way that and elevate it. So we've spent quite a bit of time in the last several years focusing on transparency. We've launched a grant program and also focusing on equitable pay for this work because we acknowledge there's a significant amount of work that goes into creating open educational resources. And we want to make sure that we're valuing our faculty and practitioners for doing this work. I can share a little bit about that later.
Maybe I'll step in and bring things up maybe to a national level when you introduce challenges. The US right now, where to even start. I think it's important to acknowledge that open education work in the US is happening against the backdrop of what's happening in education in general and what's happening in our democracy. And that all of that is affecting people in the open education movement and more broadly in ways that are personal and professional. People's jobs are being affected. The funding for open education work is shifting. And that's on top of sort of all of the broader concerns people are grappling with the, some of the changes in our society. And of course, many of these challenges are not new, but many people are experiencing them for the first time. And I think it's important to acknowledge the impact that that's going to have on open education work, restrictions on the use of language around diversity, equity, and inclusion has impacted some OER programs. Loss of funding related to that has impacted some OER programs. But there is an opportunity that I see in all of this, and an opportunity that open education presents, and that's you can have an impact through open education at any level and for any reason. So not everybody is in a position to be able to implement broader change or take broader action to address impacts on their community. But there are actions that individuals can take to impact the students around them, whether that's just adopting an open textbook and saving them money, engaging in open pedagogy, or developing open resources that are more relevant to the student audience, and or implementing new open education programs that are able to expand equitable access for all students. And there are many reasons to do this, whether you're advocating for it on the basis of student success or transparency or broader access to knowledge. And I think those are all things that everybody can agree on. So I think there's so many great examples in this conversation of the types of opportunities that exist. And I think there's a lot more of those now. And there's also an opportunity to think longer term about how, as we look ahead to the future and, perhaps opportunities that will come about at some point in the future to rebuild some of our systems, some of the programs that have been cut, and think about how we can do that with open principles at the core and be ready to do that when those opportunities arise.
I'm thinking about what everyone has been talking about, and I think this leads in perfectly to the question, what do you see the future of open education being?
I'm happy to jump back in if people or my colleagues don't mind. I think open education is really at a crossroads. I think speaking specifically for the US national context, but this may resonate in Canada as well in some ways. Open education has come a really long way, and the modern open education movement has really been built in higher education around affordability and student access and replacing traditional materials with open educational resources. And it has come such a long way in terms of the latest statistics on OER awareness and OER adoption. And the reality, though, is that we were so successful that the commercial market has responded. They've responded with automatic textbook billing programs that co-opt a lot of the language that we've used for successful advocacy. There's been a shift in the types of products that they offer to embed online homework and other systems that faculty have come to rely on that we don't always have open alternatives to. And open education is sort of in this moment where it also needs to define its relevance in a world that's increasingly focused on AI and emerging technology and simultaneously grappling with all of these larger challenges happening in the environment around us. And I think there's an opportunity right now in terms of thinking about open education as something bigger than what it's always been. and reaching out beyond sort of the way we've always talked about open education in terms of just open resources or just open pedagogy, and assert its broader relevance to the different evolving areas of education, whether that's a focus on workforce education, micro credentials, adult education. I know there's work happening with prison education and incarcerated students, and thinking about reaching out beyond sort of the what sometimes can feel a little bit like an echo chamber, and take the philosophy of open education and apply that in new ways, and put it at the center of the innovation that's happening in open education, or in education more broadly right now.
And I saw Robert comment AI in the chat, but before Robert, we jump into that, I'd really love to hear Shinta and Andrea talk about sustainability and the future of open education.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. I think for me, as I contemplate on this question, open education, the future of it, is about liberating learning. It's about being able to learn, not necessarily based on your zip code or the country of origin or demographic. It's really about equitable learning opportunities for everybody, and educators as well, being able to find information, use information, and distribute as we see fit, so that everyone gets high quality learning and everyone gets professional development. Educators get professional development that is also high quality across the board. And so for me, it's about seeing students as co-creators of the knowledge, seeing more partnerships across the world or around the world. It's increasing that empowerment of all of us to have access to education. That's where, and shared humanity too. And it ties into a little bit to what Nicole was saying earlier about what's happening in our spaces around the world, in the nation, everywhere. So I think that all of that is really where learning, open education ought to be going in. It's that liberating learning.
Yeah, thank you. So just to build off of what Shinta and Nicole are discussing, I think a lot about, and although it's not new, and I mentioned it, but the public good. And I just want to tell a quick short story. My sister is in Japan right now, and she reached out to me and said, "Oh my goodness, I just found an information sheet that has a Creative Commons license on it." And so, although that is not work I've personally done, right, it's connected to the community and the broader information. And it made me think how much, how connected we are as a community, the open education community, and also like what kind of impacts are out there that we're not aware of. There's so many stories happening that this work affects. So the public good is something that gets me really excited. I do want to talk a little bit going back to sustainability. Nicole touched on a very important point, which is, and I know this is something that maybe is not but funding, right, is something that we need to consider with sustainability. Often I get concerned just in hearing in my regional area, funding is an issue. Funding is an issue for several programs that I hear, even nationwide. So I'm wondering, how can we possibly look at maybe different funding streams? I mean, right now we talk about state funding, we talk about grants, and we talk about institutional funding. We do have a little bit of a different funding model at our institution. We started off with grant funding. And we also have institutional funding, and we have a small materials fee funding, which students do pay. That sustains our program and also helps us pay our faculty, compensate our faculty at an equitable rate for the amount of time they're putting into creating these resources. So I do think having some additional conversations around the amount of work and how we're equitably recognizing people for doing this work as well. Those are important conversations I think that we should be having as a community as well.
And Letitia, I just keep thinking about your work, and it's just so intriguing to me. Would you like to say how you see the future of open education?
I really liked what Andrea Scott mentioned earlier about sustainability, about how funding is a key element, because from my own experience, how I was able to develop this website was because I got funding as a student from Open Press, which is part of the Thomson Rivers University. And if I did not get that funding, it would have been much more of a challenge because in my case, my website is catered towards elementary students, young students, and it's through storytelling. And for storytelling to happen, you need to make the resources as engaging as possible, meaning including pictures, meaning making interactive activities, which requires a lot of work. And without that, if there's not enough money to keep that sustainability, then you're not going to be able to provide students or future leaders or future educators the opportunity to revolve their resources around that. And that becomes more of a challenge. And to just talk about, I think it was Nicole. Yeah, Nicole, you had mentioned about authority. It's about like authoritative, where the resource comes from. It's that shared authorship and shared ownership and shared responsibility is a huge element because you might find that with your work, you're able to collaborate, like it was mentioned earlier, with other people that would be interested in adding maybe some more resources or maybe referring it. And I see that as a very big future. And also creating employment opportunities as well for many people, because in my case, what I did is that with the grant that I received, I was able to employ a person, not within the university, I wasn't able to get someone, but from my community, I was able to employ an illustrator to do graphic designs for the stories. So you can imagine how that broadens the gap, not only in making education more accessible, but also giving opportunities in terms of employment, in terms of creativity. And I see that as a future. And also inclusivity, because when I was working on my website, you get to see there's so many things you need to consider. Like if there's going to be a video, you need to make sure that the subtitles are there. You need to make sure that it is accessible to people who may have some issues or who may not have as much, who may have, let's say, some special needs. So it makes it, I see the future of it being much more inclusive for everybody. And yeah, that's what I would say in terms of the future for open educational resources.
And I'm looking at your website right now. Thank you, Robert, for posting that. I just think it's amazing. Interactive activities, intergenerational learning, cultural values. There's so much to explore on this website. Robert, did you want to jump in? I know that you want to talk about AI.
Well, actually, I just had a question for Letitia about the use of traditional knowledge in as an OER. And so one of the things that we're facing at Norquest is that there's sometimes a contradiction between traditional knowledge, how it's to be disseminated and used, and the open licenses, which means that people can freely share it. But some stories are not meant to be shared at certain times of the year, and some of the stories are sacred and not to be shared. So I just wondered if you had any experience with that and concerns like that.
In my case, yes, because with the stories I'm sharing, of course, you need to get back to your community and not just immediate relatives, but also citing scholarly authors that may have ventured or done proper research. And the thing is with my case, Indigenous research is it's very informal and it's very fluid, meaning that you might find that, for example, with stories, it is interpreted differently by different people, in terms of even different dialects. So one of the main challenges is it's very easy to misinterpret some things and not make sure that it is verified, because some people might disagree with, for example, like origin stories. If I want to share an origin story about a certain community, it's very important that you network with a lot of people, and it's not just family members, but you also need to look for resources. And the thing is that resources is mostly oral. You are not going to really find written work that's to do with like oral storytelling, that's to do with origin stories, for example, because indigenous knowledge is mostly oral, so there are not a lot of written articles about it. And that's why you need to be very careful, because you don't want something to be taken out of context. And on top of that, you do not also want it to be misused and taken and exploited, such that it's misrepresenting the community which you're trying to represent and explain to even people that might be curious or want to understand more about that community. So it can be a challenge, but it's also a blessing in its own way, because you get to give back to the community, and there's also, again, with that shared ownership and responsibility, you try to get as much feedback as possible, so that it's not, how would I say it? So that you put in as much accurate information as possible.
Thank you.
I feel like we would be remiss to not talk about Gen AI. Would anybody like to mention that?
Well, that topic could be a panel in itself. So I think maybe I'll name a couple of the just questions that are out there. I think there is a need for open education to define itself with respect to artificial intelligence, and specifically generative artificial intelligence. On one hand, we see many opportunities of it in terms of being able to instantly produce content and leverage that technology to support humans in producing, doing the hard work of authoring and developing resources. On the other hand, there are the many accompanying challenges, things including attribution and copyright issues, the problems related in terms of knowledge theft and biased algorithms, and indigenous erasure, and all of the issues with using tools that have been built on the histories that are most accessible to them. So I think as a community, we have conversations to have about what our orientation is, because there are many different views about it being good, about it being bad, and then mixed views. And I think those discussions are really useful internally, but it can create challenges in terms of advocacy or policy. So I think coming up with areas of alignment would be an opportunity to consider. And I think also I'm really interested in some of the work that's happening around defining openness in the context of AI. And I don't mean open AI, the company, but true openness, and how things like, open weights or models can help create AI or support the use of AI in a way that's more ethical and aligned with our values.
I'll also add to that. I think one way for all of us to really explore that intersection between Gen AI and OER or Open Ed is looking at it as partners, right? Not necessarily as a shortcut to one another, but really more like a springboard for students and educators to use it for critical thinking and for improving our digital literacy. So, you know, we shouldn't, I don't think anyone should say that Gen AI is replacing open ed. It simply just extends it. And so from a sustainability perspective, I think it's important for institutions in higher education to offer professional developments in those spaces and to be able to show people, show you know, educators all around the world that well, we're collaborators here. I was just in a webinar, attended a webinar yesterday by Jose Antonio Bowen, who is coming out with another book on AI, teaching with AI or teaching in AI. And he says, we are the boss of AI. AI is simply another form of labor. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's really a great way to see that Gen AI and open education truly are, that there's great synergy between the two and one should not replace the other. So, and institutions, like I said earlier, should support this effort by offering the professional development that is needed.
I love that. I love that you said that AI doesn't replace OER or open. I think it's so important to say that, and you know, improve people's use of AI. It's like it's out there, everyone's using it, the students are using it. We should train them or teach them the best approaches. Any other thoughts? And it could be on any topic. We have about 6 minutes left for the panel. So any topics that you want to bring up that have already been brought up or new ones.
Can I share an example of something that Montgomery College has been doing for a number of years? And it goes back to Robert's initial compliment at the beginning of the session on Heather Bruce Satrom from Montgomery College and the work that she's doing in digital storytelling. And this also ties into me and Andrea Scott and so many others. So about 8 years ago, Montgomery College founded a faculty fellowship that is called United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Open Pedagogy Fellowship. And when this was created, first, it was the first ever that we knew of in which we married the concept of open education with the concept of the United Nations SDGs. And so it has over the years become an international multidisciplinary collaboration. There's a North America chapter of which Andrea Scott and Salt Lake Community College is a partner, among so many others across the North American continent. We also have one in the Asia chapter with you know, countries and higher institutions across the continent of Asia. But where I'm really going with this is that a fellowship like this and other types of professional development like this is so important because it also engages our students and places the students at the center of their learning process and simultaneously makes them agents of change in their communities. So while they are engaging in these open pedagogy assignments that their faculty have created through the fellowship, they're also tackling all the world's problems as best as they can, one community at a time, one college and university at a time. And so that part is important to empower our students to utilize open education to make the world a better place in so many different ways. So I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to Heather Bruce Satrom, since Robert already talked about her, but also just the international efforts that we've been able to engage in for the last 8 years. And Andrea, thanks to you and your faculty also for participating in that.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left, so I guess we can start wrapping up. I'm just really really excited about the conversation happening today, the many conversations, and I wish we had more time to expand on them. There are some wonderful questions in the chat. If any of our panelists want to stick around a little while and while we start our next section, we could if you could answer any of those questions in the chat, that would be great. There are just so many wonderful ones that I can't really ask them here and take up more time. But anything in the last like 2 minutes that anybody would like to share, including you, Robert. There's just been so much wonderful topics brought up today that it's difficult to summarize.
Yes, it's been a very engaging discussion. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear your thoughts and to learn about what everybody is doing and some of the challenges and opportunities that are presenting themselves in the open community. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. A big thank you to our panelists on such a engaging and thoughtful discussion. We appreciate you and we appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge and your experience. Thank you.
It was great to be on the tour.
Well, I guess we are going to go back to sharing the screen to our slides because up next we have our snapshot talks. And we're excited to highlight some of the incredible work that's happening across North America. We gave our presenters a fun challenge, just 3 to 4 minutes and a couple of slides to give us a quick window into how open education is taking shape in their work. So let's have some fun with this, and I'll be keeping time. And while I may have to give a gentle cutoff here and there, please show your support for our presenters. And don't forget to check out their links during or after the talks. Also, my colleague, as each snapshot talk begins, my colleague is going to post the link to the section in OEG Connect where you can engage with the authors, ask questions, or bring up ideas and other whatever you want to bring up. But of course, you're always welcome to chat in the chat box, and once they're done with their snapshot talk and the pressure is off, hopefully they can answer your question. So before we get started, I am just going to find the timer. And you'll only see this in the top of my Zoom box. But I would like to hand it over to BC Campus. And we have two presenters today. I'll ask you to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and I will start the timer. BC
Thank you,
Campus.
Liz. And thank you. I'm Clint Lalonde. I'm the interim executive director of BC Campus. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the panel for that really excellent discussion leading into this. I'm joining you today from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, which is also known as Victoria, British Columbia. And in our lightning talk today, we want to tell you a little bit about a research project that we've been working on here in British Columbia with Dr. Rajiv Janjani and Oya Pakal and the Inclusive Education Research Lab at Brock University, examining open education practices and the capacity and maturity of the British Columbia post-secondary system. Open education in British Columbia has been happening in one form or another for about 20 years now, with BC Campus leading much of the work. We're a sector-wide support organization for the British Columbia post-secondary system. And we've had a great deal of open education success in the province, especially in the past 13 years with our open textbook initiative. But it's been a few years since we've actually done any empirical research to measure the full impact of our open education initiatives beyond tracking things like textbook adoptions and cost savings. So our hope with this research was to gain a better understanding of what types of OEP are happening at institutions in the region, and in a region that has a fairly mature open education community. We also wanted to share the findings with each of the institutions that participated so they can better understand what is happening at their own institution. And finally, we want to be able to use the findings to help BC Campus develop some better systemic initiatives and programs to better support the entire sector. So in the spring, we circulated a survey to BC institutions with a number of questions about the types of OEP that were happening at their institutions. These questions are drawn from the Institutional Self-Assessment Tool, or ISAT-2, which is an open education assessment tool that was developed here in Canada to help post-secondary institutions self-assess their capacity to support OEP, as well as the maturity of their OEP initiatives. And what you're seeing is the 6 different OEP dimensions that are used as part of the ISAT-2. And if you take away one thing from this talk, I would suggest taking a look at the ISAT-2 tool if you're really interested in understanding the capacity and the maturity of the open education initiatives that are happening on your campus or at your institution. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Josie Gray, right now for the second part.
Thanks, Clint. Hi, everyone. My name is Josie Gray, and I'm the Interim Director of Open Education at BC Campus. Could we move to the next slide, please? We just want to give you the very smallest peek into the results. This graph shows the median institutional responses for each of the subdimensions, starting with the weaker on the left and then getting more strong as they move to the right. So overall in BC, we are seeing relatively strong awareness, strong technology and infrastructure, and strong library partnerships. However, things like research support and vision are a few of the things that are on more of the weaker side. Now, this is just the median responses of all of the institutions that submitted responses through the survey. In the research analysis, each dimension will be broken down by institutional type as well as geography, so we can get a more nuanced understanding of what open educational practices are looking like in British Columbia. Could we move to the next slide, please? There are a few different opportunities to learn more about this research. The report will be released on the BC Campus website November 19th, and we also have a public webinar that'll be happening on November 24th. There's a similar report that Ontario has released that we'll share a link to get more insight into what the BC report will look like, and I will also put a link into the ISAT into the chat that you can access. Thank you.
Oh, Heather, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I hope everyone sees the links to that you'll share in the chat, and we appreciate you accepting this challenge for this 4-minute snapshot talk. And up next, we have the CUNY 1969 project. And so I will go ahead and start the timer now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I just want to start by thanking the organizers, Heather, Liz, everyone else at OEGlobal for including this project today in the tour. We really appreciate the opportunity to spread the word about the CUNY 1969 project. So in 2021, we launched this project at Baruch College, which is part of the City University of New York system. It's an interactive OER platform. You can think of it as a interactive history text kind of OER textbook, and it explores the history of the CUNY's 5-demand student protest movement. In this project, we've curated historical texts, recordings, and interviews, which come from different parts of CUNY's archival system and initiatives in an effort to provide an applied showcase of these archives, which then can be used in classrooms across CUNY. So we realized that CUNY's history of activism often remains frozen in these archives and does not really get passed down to its undergraduate students. And so this project invites CUNY stakeholders to reanimate the history of student activism, particularly re-engage with the archives that store it and pass this knowledge down to their students. And concurrent to the development of this project, we've also hosted a summer CUNY 1969 Teach-In and Retreat program since 2022. So in there, we invite a cohort of CUNY instructors to collaborate over OER materials associated with the project that also interact with their own interests. And these can be lesson plans, assignments for future instructors, but also look like other things, which I'll mention in just a minute. Yeah, you can move to the next slide. Thank you, Liz. So we found that leveraging open education practices can create deep community partnerships among departments, organizations, CUNY faculty, and even alumni. And that really is the thing that has been essential to the work of this project. And that's the thing that I want to really highlight today. So our summer teach-ins have led us to think about the practice of very different kind of model for building OER. We often refer to the CUNY 1969 project as a work in progress, and our teach-in participants as contributors. So in this way, the project has over 40 contributors and has been used in teaching as a teaching tool in over 60 unique courses across the CUNY system. And although teaching materials like assignments, classroom activities, and syllabuses make up the majority of the contributions to the project, we have also received input, feedback, and expertise that has enhanced the project's narrative, research-based, site design, and interactive elements as well. So for example, we are nearing a completion of rebranding the site, complete with a new logo, fonts, and navigational experience. And this rebranding was part of a contribution from a former teaching participant, a professor of graphic communications at Baruch, who collaborated on it with her former student. So she and her student thought deeply about what the overlapping spirits of open education and activism meant for making design choices, for example, around fonts, artwork, and logos. And speaking of AI, we also actually have a current project around someone who's ethically and responsibly building an AI bot for this project. But more on that at another time. Beyond the teach-ins, we've also created co-sponsored events and opportunities to invite back former contributors, nurture more collaborative open training practices, and support scholars and students interested in this topic. And so ultimately, this project became a tool and launching pad for the practice of doing open education rather than just a static open ed text. We learned quickly that using this compelling narrative and teaching tool to invite more people into open education was really the key to building community. So thank you for checking this out. The scan codes are there. You can jump to the project, and looking forward to the other exciting projects as well. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Hamid. Next up, we have the Trauma-Informed Perspective, or TRIP, guidebook. And Beth, if you're ready, I will go ahead and start the timer now.
Thanks, Heather. I just want to also acknowledge that I'm in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, currently located on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe people. And one of the components of this project is I had a consultation with a friend and co-instructor who's also knowledge keeper and elder, Liz Ozamek, who helped me develop some Indigenous knowledge and infuse it into some of the activities that we did. So I've just put a link in the chat to where this QR code takes you, which is the actual press book that I developed based on this project. So if you can go to the next slide, that would be great. If you want to visit that link while I'm chatting, that would also be great, because it will allow you to explore really the whole point of what I did in this project. So it's essentially, it was developed using funds, and I echo Letitia's comment on being grateful that I was able to be paid for the hard work that was invested into this project, and recognizing now that a lot of future OER projects will likely be off the side of my desk. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the value of that. And I also echo Letitia in only I was making this project for undergraduate students. I see myself a little bit as an undergraduate kindergarten teacher. So a lot of the interactive things that you described are also in my modules. There are a lot of images, a lot of things that will engage them in material in very traditional ways to the elementary school thing. So I appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. So this guidebook that I've created is a series of modules that were developed in companion to a course, a fourth year virtual practicum course in criminology that a colleague of mine offered here at Trent. In this virtual practicum, students are sent on virtual placements where they will solve community problems, real life community problems, and could be engaging with trauma survivors. So I'm an academic advisor and instructor here at Trent. And before I did this work, I worked in sort of social work adjacent work for 15 years and watched my colleagues burn out. Realized that I felt felt really unprepared for things like vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, and wanted to do something about it in higher education and just maybe set students up for success, because over 200,000 students in North America attend experiential learning co-op placements, and do that kind of work that puts them often in contact with trauma survivors if they're in fields like social work or criminology or even education. So I wanted to give them some tools. We wanted to give them some tools, make those tools universally designed. And because I'm an expressive artist, also give them the opportunity to understand that stress can also be released through physical exercise, but also through art. I think in higher education, we often shy away from some of those kinds of more interactive things. And I really wanted to focus on that. So you'll see as you explore the guidebook itself that it has a lot of land-based components, which again were developed with my friend and elder. And I like, it's very odd to do land-based things in an online format, but it was important to me to ground people in healing through the land wherever they may be, because it's an online course. It could be anywhere in the world. I also created some video content that was me in the woods, essentially with a selfie stick, learning lessons from the land and using them and applying them to concepts related to self-care that would help protect them from compassion fatigue and compassion satisfaction. And I was able to apply a lot of the material and content in other contexts, like my courses in management skills.
Yeah.
And also in education and beyond. So I just want you to get, I think the modules and the book speak for itself. So I just invite you to peruse it. And I was just going to put my email in the chat as well if you have any questions to contact me after. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Beth. Up next is the Open Education Association.
Hi. You go ahead and start. So hi, everyone. My name is Aisha. I'm from Maryland in the United States, and I am the Open Education Project Manager for SPARC and a steering committee member for the Open Education Association Development Project. So I am really excited to be here today to talk about the Open Education Association Development Project, which is soon to be the Open Education Association. So since I only have a few minutes, I thought it would be best to focus on why it's important for there to be a national professional association dedicated to open education in this moment. So as shown on this slide, the development project launched earlier this year and is focused on serving the US open education community. But this work actually started in about 2023, 2024, and it grew out of conversations from data which showed that OER awareness and adoption within the US has made tremendous progress, and the field has done amazing work thus far, saving students millions and creating equitable and representative materials. But the growth has recently plateaued, and it's not just that, but open education has been facing barriers and rising challenges. My colleague Nicole earlier shared very eloquently the way we are being impacted at a national level. But just to give some examples, this past decade, we have seen a rise of automatic textbook billing practices, AI, obviously, restrictions on DEI, and all of this is in tandem with the changing US political and higher education landscape. And this has made there be a strong need for coordination amongst the field to help strengthen the impact of open education, be equipped to face these barriers and rising challenges, and uplift the field to its full potential. So this is where the idea for the association really bloomed from. These concerns were further echoed by the community this year when we issued a national needs assessment survey and field gap analysis. And the responses from the community showed a need for support in a handful of areas, and this included finding OER, more curated tools and resources, responding to technological and political change, and of course, funding. What these results also illuminated is that these areas need support now, and that structure and coordination is an avenue to help close these gaps. So the Open Education Association, which is planning on officially launching this month and inviting members to join, is a dues-based membership association for individuals in the open education field within the US who either work or live within the US. And whether you're faculty, librarian, staff, advocate, ally, whatever the case may be, the association is a place to support and sustain the open education field and show others what we, meaning the open education community, know to be true this whole time, which is that open education is legitimate, it's a professional field, and it has such strong positive impacts for all those involved. So we have already started putting out resources, which I will link when I'm done talking, and we have more resources, programming, and plans that address the needs that surface from the survey. And if you are interested, I encourage you to go to opened.org to learn more, to watch previous recordings, and sign up for updates to get an invitation to join OEA in the upcoming weeks. I am also available through email if you have any questions, and I'm happy to meet through Zoom if you want to talk about it, talk about, challenges you're facing, ways in which you think the association can help uplift the field. And last thing, oh my gosh, I'm doing great on time. Okay. And we will also be at OpenEd 25 in person and online. So if you're attending, please say hi. I look like this. I will be there. We have a table. And yeah, we're just really excited to get this project off the ground. And it has been a true community effort. People in this very room who have come to our working groups and have had one-on-one conversations with us. And it's just been a great thing. So thank you all, and I will share the links.
Thank you, Aisha. We have two snapshot talks left. So I'm going to start the timer. Laura, if you're ready for the Open for Anti-Racism program.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Laura Dunn. I'm the director of the Open for Anti-Racism program within CCCOER. I am a Kanaka Maoli Native Hawaiian whose ancestors come from the Aina of Honolulu on the island of Oahu, even though much, if not all, of my work is located in the state of California. So with that said, for those of you who have never heard of Open for Anti-Racism, which we call OFAR, this is a program that started in the spring of 2020. I think everyone remembers that spring and summer. If you were in the United States, there was COVID going on. There were some heightened racial tensions that were growing, and a lot of American colleges, North American colleges, were trying to figure out how to make their teaching more equitable and anti-racist. So OFAR arose as a response to that. And so basically what we do is we provide professional development programming and training through a year-long program to community colleges across the state of California. And so at least at the time I looked at the statistics, we have 116 accredited community colleges across the state with more than 1.8 million students. And these students are very diverse. We have about 46% who identify as Latina or Hispanic. We have 24% white, 11% Asian, 6% African American or Black, 4% multi-ethnic, 3% Filipino, and so on and so forth, and 50% female. And I think it's important to note that 35% of students in the California community colleges are first generation students. So our goal is to leverage open educational tools such as OER and open pedagogy to help make teaching materials and practices more anti-racist. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of our what our program goals look like from year to year, and you can scan the QR code if you'd like to learn more about our program. So in the fall, we invite, or actually in the summer, we invite applicants from all across the state to join our year-long program. And this year, it's been really great. We have over 50% colleges who have joined are first-time participants. They've never participated before. They are colleges in rural communities, most of them in Central California. And these faculty learn about anti-racist pedagogy. They learn about OER in our brand new Canvas course, which was just revised this year. So we're very happy about that. And then in the spring, they take what they've learned in the fall and then they implement it in their spring courses in collaboration with their students. And this is a research project. So we collect research and data along the way on student outcomes. Next slide, please. And here are some of our most recent data points. So we have 91% of faculty who say that OFAR has improved their teachings. Our top gains were open pedagogy, CRT, culturally responsive teaching, and anti-racist practice. 80% of students say that they're more engaged in other classes. Oh, and that got cut off. I apologize for that. And 100% felt seen, heard, and acknowledged. Oh, it's on the next slide. So thanks for listening, everyone. If you'd like to learn more, you can go ahead and visit the QR code on our website.
Thanks so much, Laura. We have one more snapshot talk for the day, and that is eCampus Ontario's Open Library. So Sarah, if you're ready, I'll start the timer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Suknanen from the Tech and Open Access team at eCampus Ontario, which is in Toronto, which is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. I'm going to first talk about our Mastering Open Ed program, which is led by some of my lovely colleagues, Mary Gu and Siri Guthrie. Mastering Open Ed has come a long way from where it first started. In 2018, this program was known as OE Fellows, which are champions in the open field that were chosen to help promote open education in their respective institutions. So these were faculty members, support staff, librarians, people like that. This evolved into the OER Champions program that then created the most Mastering Open Ed resource to now, which is the Mastering Open Ed Badge Microcredential Program. This program lasts about 7 weeks. The program covers topics like OER accessibility, licensing, publishing platforms like H5P and Pressbooks, and open initiatives. Since its first cohort last year, the program has seen much engagement and success. Next slide, please. The next thing I would like to highlight is some of our Francophone work, many of which has been led by my colleague Cecile Figueroa. There have been multiple initiatives to support open access and education. We collect adoption information on Francophone and bilingual institutions to show the student savings that by using OERs. So from about 2017 to the present, we have seen at least 1.5 million in savings. In the past, we have made efforts to adapt and create French OERs for the Francophone community. This was through translating high impact OER that we have in our catalog and providing stipends to Francophone educators and staff. What is upcoming from the Francophone employees at ECO is a workshop at RAFAD, which is a conference for French distance learning. It's a hybrid workshop. Participants will take part in 2 structured reflection cycles to map the implications of emerging trends. Together, they will co-create speculative scenarios, imagining a typical teacher's day in 2045. These scenarios will be generated using Madlib prompts and AI tools. The workshop will also contribute to the development of an OER facilitation guide, which will be updated with the case study from the workshop. That is it for me. I will also drop in some links and an email if you have any further questions about either Mastering Open Ed, some of our adoption program, or our Francophone initiatives at eCampus Ontario. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you to all 6 of our projects and even more presenters than that. We really appreciate you accepting the challenge to do the snapshot, and we hope that all of the attendees and those watching the recording later on, I hope that you will seek out these projects and learn more about them. Um, so save the date. Tomorrow, we are live streaming the Open Education Awards ceremony, and we're going to pop that link into the chat. Oh, it's there. And so we hope to see you tomorrow and get to celebrate with us. Hopefully, all of the nominees feel celebrated just for the sheer act of being nominated. Everyone deserves recognition, and we hope that you feel that from the OER community because we appreciate you. Let's go to the next slide. So just a quick reminder that we are already working on Open Education Week, which we now have scheduled for March 2nd through the 6th in 2026. You have probably heard about Open Education Week, but more details will be coming. Every year we seem to get bigger and add more things. So be on the lookout for more information about that. And then we hope that you will consider joining us in person and online for the Open Education Global Conference in 2026. It is now scheduled for October 7th through the 9th, and it will be in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And you can read an article about it. We've just posted the link in the chat. It's in partnership with MIT. We're really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for joining us today. Before I hand the mic over to Robert, I just want to say that we appreciate you so much attending. For those participating, it's just been really wonderful to gather together very quickly for this very short stop on the tour. Robert?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everybody for the wonderful and engaging discussion that we had at the beginning, the panel discussion. I always love that. I always love hearing what's happening in your area and hearing diverse perspectives on some of the challenges and opportunities and future of open education, and also the chats at the end, your short presentations. I really love those. I think there's a lot of resources that I'm going to be using, and much appreciated. Thank you so much for enlightening us.